The most dangerous thing about sleep deprivation is that it actually removes your ability to understand how impaired you are. And so today we are going to talk about not just how to sleep more, but how to sleep better. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I need to know this? Well, I'll give you an example. One of my mentors, he runs an eight-figure business, and he told me in the past that he used to always and he struggles with his sleep to the point where he actually cut off his TV cable. Crazy, right? But guess what? It still did not help him sleep better or even increase his quality of his sleep. So today we're going to be talking about the architecture, and as a result will help you increase the quality and the quantity. And so this will be something that I talk about with my one-to-one high performance business owners clients in my high performance coaching and the relentless sovereign. And so let me take you through it all and what's helped them. And before we do that, I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, I've done all of these. I've read the sleep books. I've listened to Andrew Huberman. I've listened to all of these guys. I've even tried to change my bedroom, my bed schedule from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or try to wake up at 6 a.m. But guess what? Has it helped? Has it worked? Probably not. Because yes, it's great that you're trying to deal with the symptoms, but you have not dealt with the root cause itself. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to go through the Sovereign Sleep System swipe file that is in the description below for you to try and implement so that you can improve the architecture and the quality of your sleep. Every business owner that I've worked with who are doing six figures more or more, they are usually coming with these set of beliefs that were said, ages ago, which they've probably been taught themselves. So this is what they've been seeing is really and truly just the old way of looking at things. But now, when you look at high performing business owners now, in, for example, companies like Amazon, in fact, they have shown and it's been shown that their executive team have wearable devices that look at the quality of not just their recovery but their sleep, because each decision, each thing that they do for the business, if it goes wrong, can cost them six figures there itself. So what's the new way of looking at things? What's the new way of that we look at sleep? So that's what we want to explore today. And you want to ask yourself, where am I at the moment? What do I actually believe about sleep itself? The first thing that I've seen is that sleep means you're not hustling. If you're not, if you're sleeping too much, if you're sleeping or if you're sleeping at the correct time, at the correct moment, having good quality sleep, it just means that you're not hustling. Or you're not hustling hard enough, should we say. But what's the new way? The new way is that sleep is the high performing asset itself. It's the high performing asset itself. It's the thing which allows you used as a tool to create the energy to make effective decisions to run your business smoothly. The second thing that we see is that if a person is resting, they can only rest when their business is stable. So I'll only rest or sleep when there's stability. But that's a vicious cycle itself. So what's the new way of looking at things? The instability that you might see in the business most likely is coming from the sleep debt itself. The sleep that you have not recovered yet, the sleep that you have not paid for it yet. That is where a lot of your instability may come from. The third thing that I've seen is that someone may say, "Oh yeah, I've done, I run on 5 hours of sleep. I've adapted to your energy, your scheduling, whatever it may be." But what's the new way? Well, 5 hours of sleep is you've adapted to the damage. Damage. You've adapted to the damage that you've done, not just cognitively, but really and truly to the different effects that you have been blinded to. And the last thing that I've seen is that nothing works. I've tried everything. Nothing absolutely works. But what's the new way? It's not the symptoms. You don't want to look at the symptoms. The new way is actually looking, okay, what's the root cause? And that's what we are going to cover today. So every business owner that I've worked with comes under one of these four boxes. And so ask yourself, where do you fit in this puzzle? So the first person is someone who is constantly surviving and they're constantly wired. They're constantly up, they're constantly on, as they want to call it. If that's you, then all you are is you're in the grind. You're constantly feeling that you're on a uphill battle. If you feel like you're still surviving, but you're getting better, you feel less wired, then that is what we call the myth. Because yes, you are less reactive when you're going to sleep, your nervous system is a lot better, but you feel like you're constantly tired. The quantity has improved, yes, but the quality is still less, which means the architecture isn't there. What makes up your sleep is not there. And that's very much a myth because that cannot be carried on. And that's a false pretense that a lot of business owners feel like they're doing something well when really not. So, what are the other two? This is when you are recovering and you're becoming more sovereign with your sleep, but you're still wired. And that is very much still in the hustle because you are still thinking, you're still acting, and you're still staying up at night until 2 a.m. thinking about the business. Really and truly fall asleep when you want to. Even though you're still getting your sleep and you're still improving the quality of your sleep, you are still constantly being up and on. So where does that leave us? The one who is more sovereign with their sleep and is recovering very well, and they have completely recovered. This is the high performing business owner that we want. So we're not going to focus on these because we already know what you're doing. We want to get here. That's our focus for today. So right now, what I want you to do, I want you to score yourself. Not 1 out of 10. I want you to slow yourself down and ask yourself, are you in the traffic light system? Are you green? Are you right? Are you green right now? Are you someone who's sharp on waking, present by 6 p.m., and is able to switch off and go to sleep when they want to? Are you amber? Are you someone that you know something feels off, but you're just managing it? Or are you currently red and you know what that is? You're constantly tired at all times of the day, or you have more energy dips because of the lack of sleep that you had the night before, and you're constantly on even when you want to go to sleep. Where would you say you are at the moment? Because there's actually been research to show that below 6 hours, the brain can operate in the equivalent of legal intoxication. That's how much delayed processing you might have. Your executive thinking might be reduced, all because you are not getting the adequate level of sleep in terms of quality and sometimes quantity that you need. So ask yourself, where are you right now? Green, amber, or red? We're going to look at the 5 different ways in which you actually can physically and tangibly improve your sleep. Not just the quality, not just the architecture, but also even the quantity sometimes, right? And so the first thing we want to look at is, are you going against your natural biology? And so back in the day, we were told, you know, 10 p.m., go to sleep, wake up at 6 a.m., generic advice. But now the new way, which is I want to do that in a green, the new way is about understanding the genetic component behind your sleep. So understanding that you want to work with your biology and not against it. And there's one word that would describe that, and that's chronotype. There are four different types. There is lion, bear, wolf, and dolphin. And you're probably thinking, what's with all of these animals? Well, when the chronotypes was discovered, they found animals which correspond with equivalent waking and sleeping times. Now, most business owners, because they may have a background in a career in a particular job, may end up being a bare chronotype. This is someone who naturally goes to sleep around 11, 12 p.m. And wakes up around 7 a.m. That's typically about 70% of the population. And what I'll do is in the description below, there is a quiz to show what type of chronotype you are and which will correspond to when you should sleep or when is the best time for you to go to sleep and when is the best time for you to be waking. Of course, as Muslims, we have the Fajr, and so you have to correlate and work around that as well. But in short, understanding very simply which one you are. And once you understand that, all I want you to do is try it. Try this particular setup for 7 days, just a week, and see the difference it will make, not just in your energy, but how naturally you may wake up. The first few days may feel a bit struggling, but as you develop it, as you get better, you'll notice that this follows your biology. This follows how you should be and how you must be because you're using your physiology with you, not against you. So use the link in the description to look at the quiz for which chronotype you are. And once you've done that, there will be suggested times for waking and suggested times for when you go to sleep, and try and follow that for at least 7 days. If you're someone who, even though you're sleeping at the right time, you constantly feel like you're being wired, you constantly feel like you're on, that's probably because you've been used to the old way of, you know, laptop in bed means straight away go to sleep after that. But that's the old way. That's the way that you were probably designed to do when you were in school, and that same habit you sort of brought up. But what do we want to do now? The new way is, in fact, giving us nervous system the time for it to cool off, the time for it to cool down, and to enter into a deep restful state. So actually prioritizing our nervous system. That's the new way. That's the way that we want to shift, because what that will do is it will allow all your entire body, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, it will allow you to calm down. So what can we do about that? What's one thing that you can do? Well, I'm going to give you two. First thing you can do is breathe. It sounds ridiculous, but true. I did this yesterday with a client actually. And as soon as he did that, you notice all of the weight coming off his shoulders. And he does these are his words. Once he done that, he felt so much more calmer, so much more at peace, almost looked like he was about to fall asleep. But that was because once we managed the nervous system, what we call parasympathetically, that's when we used the biology for him, which allowed him to get into more of a restful state. The second thing that you can do is what I like to call blurting. Blurting is basically a tool where you can either use a piece of paper, a whiteboard, wherever it may be, or even a voice recorder, and you just blurt every single thing out from your mind into something physical. And there's a little bit of a you can call it NLP or whatever you want to call it, but there's a little bit of science behind that. Is that once you physically can take something and offload from something, what I want you to do then is delete it. For the paper, it could be for you to rip it. For the whiteboard, it could for you to be rubbing the writing off. And that is almost a physical, because you're looking at it as a physical way of deleting the things that are stressing your mind at that time of the night. So, so you can do breathing, maybe do both, or you can try blurting. Start with one and then see how that goes. And if you can do two, that would be even better. The third reason, the third way that you can actually improve the architecture of your sleep is actually understanding that you're optimizing for the wrong thing. Now, when you look at all of these wearable devices, you see so many different metrics, it almost makes you feel confused. But the old way was everybody used to say, you must get your 8 hours of sleep. But if you ever look at these wearable devices where you try and aim for eight, you end up looking at you doing like 6.5. You're like, how am I only getting 6.5 when I was sleeping for 8? But that's because we are not factoring what we now want to look at it as our deep sleep cycles. Sleep cycles. So this is the new way, and that's the old way. So how do we do that? It's by first understanding that each cycle is about 90 minutes. Each REM cycle is what we want to call it, or deep sleep cycle is 90 minutes long. And we want to aim to have at least between 3 to 4 cycles a night, right? At the minimum, at least, because that will equate to about 4.5 to 6 hours, and 7.5 will be 5 cycles. So the best way that you can do that, and again, you can look at this through your chronotype, as we mentioned earlier, is you can look at the wake time, the time that you want to preferably be awake, and you minus however many sleep cycles that you wish to have, and then that would be your optimal sleeping time or going into bedtime. Once you can do that, then you'll notice that you will have fuller, more quality sleep because you are completing the sleep cycles. A lot of the time, when we feel like we're getting 8 hours, we may wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle, and that's what a lot of the time creates the fatigue and the confusion that we have in the morning. So try this out, figure out what time you want to wake up first, and then minus it from the amount of sleep cycles that you want. We're looking at the fourth way. The fourth way is that one believes, and there's a common belief that back in the day, like as you grew up and as you sort of developed and as you built your business, you probably are used to scrolling to wind down. Used to constantly flicking through social media or watching TV for hours and hours because that's what perceives to be rest. But to be honest, that was just the old way of doing things. That's how we used to do things before. But now, the new way is understanding that the brain itself must go into a low resonated state. It cannot be constantly dopamine feeding because that will constantly allow it to want more, and then that will keep on letting you scroll and everything like that. We don't want that. It's about understanding that even the lowest level of scrolling is still activating the brain. So we want to minimize it by allowing the brain waves to go in more of a deep, restful state. So how do we do that? And the way we want to do that is at least 20 minutes before bed, before getting into bed, this is not before sleeping, 20 minutes before. This could be you engaging yourself in some deep breathing. That could even you could even do the blurting at that point. You can just go through your day, just taking everything out. And as Muslims, we have dhikr. This is something that you can do. Dhikr is actually shown to have almost similar or same effect as deep breathing because it allows your brain and your nervous system to calm itself down. So it's not about just falling into a recovery state. thinking that it's recovery, but it's actually understanding that the type of recovery you do, whether it's actually recovering your body or and your brain or if it's not. The last way that we are going to look at is understanding that when your stress hormone should, in a very short time, should rise and when it should fall. But the problem is, most business owners, their one starts off flat and then rises as the day goes. And by the night, it's completely peaked. And so remember, cortisol, it keeps you awake, keeps you alert. And so because of this part, it will prevent you from going to sleep better and quicker than when you'd hoped. So it said this is actually inverted, and that's not what we want. What we actually want is the complete opposite. We want our cortisol to be spiked in the morning. Now there is a there's a misconception around cortisol itself, thinking that cortisol is bad for you. Well, it can be, but if it stays for too long. Naturally, our cortisol spikes in the morning. So there's a natural cortisol spike, and things like cold showers and things like that. These are naturally and healthily spike your cortisol levels. So we wanted to spike in the morning, and as we go down in the day, as we go into the day more and more and more, the cortisol level should reduce. So how do we actually do that? Well, it begins by the morning. So to help your sleep is by actually doing the work in the morning, by understanding that your sleep for the night that's coming is impacted by how your morning begins. So it may be delaying your coffee. So your coffee consumption, delaying it by 90 minutes. That's it. If you can do that, then as you go about your day, because coffee itself can increase the release of things like adrenaline, cortisol, etc. If you delay it by a little bit, it will allow you to go towards more of a natural decline in cortisol as the day goes. And so what you'll notice is that instead of feeling constantly alive and awake at the night, you'll naturally hopefully feel that your stress hormones, your stress levels itself should slowly reduce and you'll naturally feel more tired as a result. We've had the 5 different ways. Now we're not telling you, I'm not telling you try and do all of these at the same time. Because that's not for first, that's not what a high performer would do. Start with one and work with it in a system. Do it systematically. So let's do it in phases. The first phase you want to talk about is actually aligning to what our body needs. And that first thing may be actually finding out your chronotype. Finding out exactly, okay, what type of chronotype am I? Am I a lion, for example? Do I like to wake up super early in the morning? Or is my biology that I naturally wake up super early in the morning? If so, what time would I need to go to sleep? What time would I structure my days around the deep work? Because even as a chronotype, when you find your chronotype, you'd actually find out that there are times where would be your most alert times and find the times where you'd have the most focus. And in my previous video, we talked about peak windows and everything like that. Is that potentially a time where you can plug in your peak window? So first thing is about aligning and understanding what your chronotype is. The second one is the bridge. Let's do that here. The bridge. Now we're creating the stability throughout our day to help you sleep better. And that could be, for example, your wind down routine. Could it be that you incorporate breathing now, the deep breathing before you go to sleep? Things like that, which allow you to build the bridge of creating the sleep architecture that you particularly want. And the third thing now is we want to recover, but not just recover, we want to recover strategically. And so that may include now with your chronotype, again going back to that, is when is the best time to nap? When is the best time to have my coffee? So this is the last step is the small details that will take you to the next level. So I had this client once. She was doing 200K, yeah, really successful coach online, but crazy. She was a chronic insomniac. She was only able to have 2 hours of sleep per night. She's tried everything. She tried doing all of these sleep medicines. She tried red light therapy, all of these things individually, but nothing helped. And so we went through a similar protocol, if not the same protocol. And within a matter of weeks, her sleep went from 2 hours consistently every night to 6 hours. And she said the other day actually that her sleep has been so much better and she's having deeper sleep as a result. So that's the power of just following your biology and using the things that are readily available to us to help with that process of improving and increasing the quality of your sleep architecture. Now that you understand all of this, what does it actually look like? What do your days look like? Well, it's just not about energy. It's not just about more energy. It's about creating better decisions. It's about having the energy to do the tasks in the business as you want to, and you know that you have the energy to do it. It's being present with your family when you go home to them. It's being more supportive as the founder to your employees. It's being more present in Salah, for example, just by making this one shift. And so ask yourself what's possible when you make this one change? This one change, this one transformation, what would be possible not just in your business, but your religion, your deen, your spirituality, your energy, your life? What would change? I would love to know. Like I said, the swipe file, what we went through today, is all in the description. The quiz also to find your chronotype will also be in the description. And yeah, that's it. Give it a try, and I'll see you in the next one.